Underdogs might just be the most raw, intense mech fighting experience VR has ever seen, and you should definitely buy it. Be warned though, if you're expecting some shiny high-tech sci-fi mech game, this isn't that. It's gritty, it's dirty, and it's downright primal in the best way. I'm breaking it all down today, from the graphics to the menus, and at the end I'll tell you why this game just set the bar for mechanized VR combat. That said, let's start with the mechanics, because the combat was exactly what I'd hoped for in a mech-focused VR game. Wildly fun, intense, and totally immersive. Underdogs simply delivers a combat experience that feels like it was made for VR. You're thrown into an arena with two massive customizable robot arms, and they're at the core of how you'll be playing this game. Whether you're moving, bashing, or throwing enemy bots across the arena, the action feels physical and incredibly satisfying. Heads up though, clear your play space, because this game will have you swinging for the fences, especially since wider swings do more damage. The combat itself and the strategy behind it really add depth to the whole arena combat thing. Each arm and your cockpit have their own health pools, and you've got to keep your eye on all three during every fight. Lose an arm and you're in a bad spot. Lose both arms and you've got no way to attack or defend yourself.
Bro hit me with the right hook.
Essentially, at that point it's game over, because your arms aren't just your attack and defense, they're how you move around the arena, so keeping them intact is literally the difference between life and the polar opposite of life. Think Gorilla Tag in terms of movement. Customization can keep you in the fight though. As you progress through the game, you unlock add-ons to boost stuff like your damage and mobility. You can even switch up what kind of weapons you have on each arm and tweak your loadouts to fit your playstyle. But combat isn't the only place to get your hands dirty. Between matches, you have many opportunities to cheat the competition. You can pay off hackers or sabotage enemy mechs to give yourself an edge in the next fight, and trust me, you'll want to, because your opponents won't hesitate to do the same to you. Coupled with the fact that health is persistent, plus you may not always be able to repair your mech in between matches. It adds a layer of underhanded strategy that fits perfectly with the game's gritty tone. And speaking of tone, at its core, Underdogs is a story about survival, brotherhood, and the choices you make in a harsh, unforgiving world. In terms of story, the game takes a pick a path and see what happens approach, where every decision you make both in and out of combat shapes your experience. You play as one half of a two-man team. You're the younger brother, piloting the mech while your older brother handles the technical stuff for you. Together, you're fighting your way through the arena matches for cash and glory, trying to carve out better lives for yourselves. And if you're not expecting this journey to be an easy one, you are absolutely correct. Not only is this game incredibly hard, but along the way, you'll definitely make enemies, and the choices you make could either bring you closer to your goal or bring you closer to layers of game overs. Basically, if you lose one match, it's game over for real, and you have to restart the campaign from the beginning, but you still get access to stuff you may have unlocked in your previous runs. Between fights, you're given a set number of actions to take, decisions that could impact your wallet and your ability to win the next battle. After clearing enough matches, basically one a day, you eventually fight the boss that, if defeated, will unlock further content and progress the game. In this unforgiving place, there is a highlight on the brothers' relationship. Their bond is at the heart of the game, and it's felt before, during, and after your matches. On the topic of tone though, let's talk about audio, because Underdog nails atmosphere with its sound design.
I'll teach you how to play Underdogs so you can make him proud. But after this, it's all on you.
Starting with the voice acting, it's solid. The characters feel believable, and the actors bring a lot of personality to their lines. The only downside is that I wish there was a lot more of it. Some scenes rely on text rather than voice acting, and while it gets the point across, I couldn't help but wish for more talking and less reading.
60% chance? Oh. I lost the fight and lost more than I would have lost otherwise.
The good news is that this game has an amazing soundtrack, as you'd probably expect from any game selling its soundtrack as digital goods. The original music fits the vibe of the game perfectly. It's gritty and exactly what you'd expect to hear in a world of underground mech battles. The sound effects are also pretty spot on. From the crunch of metal on metal to the roar of the crowd, everything feels right in line with the world Underdogs has built. In short, the audio works in harmony with the rest of the game to set the tone, making the fights feel epic, and immersing you deeper into the world of New Bracca, if I said that correctly. Now, if there was just more voice acting, the whole experience would be next level, but I have high expectations in general, and I digress, because the graphics in Underdogs brings a unique style to the table. The goal here isn't hyperrealism. The game goes for a bold, stylized look that almost feels like it was ripped out of a comic book. It's a choice that fits this game's rough, underground vibe perfectly. When you're in the arena, the action looks acceptably cartoonish. The mechs, the environment, and even the bots you're battling against give off a vibe that makes the gameplay feel harsh but lighthearted. The comic book influence stands out in how explosions and destruction feel simple and impactful, but not so much you'll be seeing attack sound effects popping off everywhere. Outside of the arena though, the graphics take a different turn. Instead of full 3D environments, you're treated to stylized 2D snapshots that help tell a story. It's a surprisingly clever way to balance the visuals while keeping a focus on the fights themselves, and I say surprisingly because it bothers me less than I thought something like this would. While the art style might not be everyone's cup of tea, it feels intentional and cohesive with the world of Underdogs. The bold visuals of the arena make every fight in this game feel larger than life, in this game anyway. While the simpler, comic-inspired snapshots outside the arena let the story take the spotlight. Otherwise, for your pleasure, let's talk options real quick, because Underdogs takes some thoughtful approaches to making the game work for its players.
It's like I should be pointing with my finger, but I don't see my finger.
With all the bot thrashing you'll be doing, calibration is a big deal, and the game makes it super accessible. Not only can you easily calibrate your arms in the settings, but the main menu will even notify you if it thinks your calibration might be off. Sometimes it's the small features that really make you feel like the devs care about your experience. That said, Underdogs is intense with a lot of colorful music and language. Thankfully, the developers included filters for both, so you can tone things down if needed. When it comes to comfort though, the options are a bit limited. There's no vignette settings, which means players prone to VR motion discomfort might find this game a little harder to stick with. On the flip side, the menu itself adds a bit of flair with its interactive design. Instead of just clicking through options, you rotate dials by physically twisting your wrist. It's another small detail that vibes perfectly here. Overall, the options menu feels tailored to the gameplay experience. While it could use a bit more focus on comfort, the calibration tools and content filters show the developers put thought into making the game as player-friendly as possible. Now, earlier in the video, I said that this game sets the bar for VR mech fighting, and I meant it. Underdogs throws you headfirst into the high-stakes world of underground mech fighting, and the combat itself is done in a way that no other VR game has even come close to. Theme gets a 6 out of 6 because the bond between two brothers and the choices you make along the way give this game some real depth. Mechanics gets a 4 out of 6 because the game integrates your arms into every aspect of gameplay, from fighting to movement. Aside from sore arms in the morning or broken objects in your play space, I doubt you'll dislike the combat. Graphics gets a 3 out of 6. While the comic book-like art style isn't for everyone, it adds an acceptable look to the game overall. Audio gets a 5 out of 6 because the soundtrack perfectly captures the pulse-pounding energy of these fights, even if more voice dialogue would have been appreciated. Options gets a 4 out of 6 because, lack of vignette and similar motion aids aside, the music and language filters alongside how simple calibration is went a long way here. For those reasons, Underdogs has earned an immersion score of 4.5 out of 6. If you've been waiting for a mech fighting VR game, this one should definitely be at the top of your list. Well, maybe not at the top because smashing the like button and subscribing for more VR content should be at the top. But let me know what you think of mech fighting in VR down in the comments, and if you think there's enough of it before you check out another video. Who knows, the next one might inspire your next purchase.